Okay, I want you to be honest with me. Tell me the truth.
That's the only way I know how to be.
Good, that's really important. So when somebody comes up to you and says, I'd like to give you some feedback, what's the first reaction or feeling that you have? Okay, you want to expand on that? What's the...
What do you want to say now?
Okay, so a little bit of a defensive. Anybody?
I got one. Oh, brother, you're one to talk.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, you just want to, you're like, okay, I know you are, I know I am, but what are you, right? Okay.
I get scared.
A little scared?
Especially at work. Like whenever they say, I want to talk to you. I get in this like little, I turn into like this little cocoon and it's high.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a hard time finding the balance between too much analytical feedback and the complimentary stuff.
Okay. Okay. And I know that, I mean, we all say, oh, feedback is supposed to be a gift. It gives you insights. And cognitively, we can reason with that. But emotionally, we can feel a little bit hurt, or, you know, it might feel like somebody's scolding us or criticizing us. And we might be smiling like that, right? So yeah, give me the feedback. Do you mind closing the door there? Okay. So here's something that I would like to share with you. My first recollection of awful feedback was when I was 5 years old. And I was in kindergarten, and a lady came in. She was a dental hygienist, and she brought one of these big toothbrushes with the big model of the teeth. And she says, who wants to show me how you brush your teeth? And of course, a lot of little kids raise their hands. She picks on me, and I get up there and I start, brushing the teeth back and forth. Well, you know what she says to me? She's like, no, that's wrong. And she takes the toothbrush out of my hands and sends me back, and I was so humiliated. And then she just called on somebody else, and that was... And you're going to be like, how can I remember something from half a century ago still, And I still remember, I don't remember much of the details, but I know how I felt. She set me up for failure. She just, showcased my failure and never bothered to show me anything or teach me anything. So that's one of the things that can happen when we don't know how to manage feedback, right? So what are some of the other reasons that feedback can fall in a not very good way? What are some of the other reasons why feedback fails? Does anybody?
Yeah, because feedback, if you make it about the person's character instead of what they were presenting, then it's going to fail.
It can't be about the person.
Exactly.
It has to be about the action, right? As soon as you personalize it, then you're criticizing, you're not giving feedback, right? Is there any other thing that you can think of why sometimes feedback fails? Yeah?
Well, you can construe it, like if you're given feedback, if somebody gives you feedback, you could construe it in the wrong way. Like you could think of it that they are being defensive or may have something against you.
Okay.
That could cause possibly what they call the negative feedback. Okay,
so you might be interpreting it as a criticism instead of something that's valuable to you. Now, if we look at it, there's a lot of times it's like maybe it might be a little too vague or general, so it just kind of goes over your head, or it sounds impersonal or too emotional, or maybe even it's the wrong time and place to give it, right? So I've come up with a very simple model that I call the frame model for feedback. I work with lots of clients at a corporate level, and a lot of times I hear managers say, how do I give feedback without demoralizing somebody? Or sometimes they're so afraid to give feedback that they don't say anything until it's too late. And then at that point they might be thinking about firing the person. But it should never come as a surprise. And the idea here is to feel confident in giving feedback so that the other person actually does see it as something that is valuable to them. But you have to be in the right mindset too. If you're just frustrated in one event, that's not the right time to give feedback. Yeah.
Doesn't it also depend on the relationship you have with that person, and if you're receptive to them? If they've given you compliments or noticed the good work you've done, you're more receptive to the negative aspect of it.
Of course, there has to be an element of trust, right? So what you can see here, and let me see if I have a little, oh yeah, I have a little thingy here. Okay, so first step is you present only the facts, and I'm going to get into that. You don't want to be all judgy in the beginning. So you present facts, and then you say what the result of the action or lack of action had, but you don't leave it there. You don't want to have a sad ending. You want a happy ending. So then you align. So you share the why, and then you go to the alternatives and options, and then at the end you get the commitment, the engage. Okay? So I want to show you an example, and I picked on purpose things that have to do with Toastmasters, even though you can use this in your work environment, at home with friends. You know, a lot of these things you can apply because it's interpersonal intelligence skills, right? So let's pretend that you're the Vice President of Education and a new member, Sam, has taken on several evaluation roles. While their feedback is accurate, their tone is too direct, sometimes bordering on harsh. A couple of speakers have privately mentioned feeling discouraged afterward, even if the points were valid. You'd like to give Sam feedback in a way that helps them keep their honesty, but soften the delivery so it motivates instead of deflating. So I figured that's something that we could probably all relate to, something that's simple, where you're like, you know, you want to be like, hey Sam, you know, but how do you approach them, right? Okay, so first thing, we're talking about the F, facts. Come on in. Okay, so when we talk about the first step, where you don't want to come across as being too judgy, you know, it's important that you use neutral language. So try to avoid using adjectives or value judgments. You just want to describe the facts, what happened. And so I want to see if you can tell if each one of these sentences, am I describing just the facts, or am I evaluating with a value judgment? So let's practice, see if you know what I mean. So the first one, if I say to you, you've been distracted lately, and you're evaluating, right? Yeah, because what does that look like? If you can describe just the facts, hey, I noticed that you were looking towards the door, or you were, you know, I called your name and you didn't respond, that's a description. That's the facts. But as soon as I make a conclusion, that's an evaluation. And we want to make sure that we don't start with that, because if you start with an evaluation, the person will get defensive. Or they'll be like, no, I didn't. Okay? Next one. I haven't received a response to the last 3 emails I've sent you. Am I describing or evaluating? Yes, we're describing just the facts. Do you see the difference there? If I were to say, you've been ignoring my emails, that would be an evaluation. Yeah. If you say that, what's the person going to respond? Nuh-uh, right? So that's why that first step is important, because if you lose the person in the beginning, it's already become a difficult thing. Okay, you delivered the report in the old format. Is a description or an evaluation? A description. Description. That's it. How about if I say you're a perfectionist? Evaluation. Very good. You don't seem committed to this new project. Evaluation. And then lastly, you missed the last 2 planning sessions.
That's a description.
Description. That, you know, you weren't there at the meetings. That's it. I'm not saying, you know, you're avoiding us or anything like that. Okay. So this is why it's important that you just describe the facts in the beginning, because you want to take the person through with you along your reasoning without jumping into an evaluation. So they'll be like, yeah, so, okay. So here we go. These are the facts. So let's look at, if we go back to the example with Sam, what happened? Stick to what you saw or heard. No assumptions or value judgments. So Sam gave a little bit of a harsh evaluation. You know, the person kind of felt bad. So how would you, does anybody have an idea? How could you approach Sam to give just the facts? Anybody? How would you start this conversation?
You want to start it with a positive.
Okay.
You want to start it with a factual, with something factual that they said.
Yes.
That was part of the presentation.
Yes.
Whatever they said.
Uh-huh.
And then you want to, secondly, go ahead and mention something that they didn't quite get 100%.
Okay.
They missed on.
Okay.
And then you give them a little bit of feedback on whatever it was that they missed on, or, you know, what you saw.
Okay.
And then you want to end it with something good.
Okay. And here you're giving me a few different steps, but here in the beginning is you're just going to say what you observed, and that's it. This is the first step.
Okay.
So if you can be really specific, so you could say, you know, hey Sam, in today's meeting, I noticed blah, blah, blah. You said this, you know, when John was presenting, you said this, this, and that. So just the facts. Don't throw value, you know, you were really harsh with John, and he, you know, you were a little cruel in the way that you said something. No, you don't want to use any of those adjectives. Okay? So you could say something like, Sam, in your last couple of evaluations, you've been really detailed and direct in pointing out what you thought was not very good. Sam's words, not mine. So if Sam's saying, this is not very good, I might just say, you said this was not very good.
Paraphrase.
Exactly. But you see, I'm just stating the facts. That's it. Okay? Okay, so next step. Okay, we're on the same page. That's what you said. Okay. So then what's the next step? What was the result? What happened? And why does it matter? Okay, so supposing that the person who presented, John presented, and he seemed kind of deflated. And maybe somebody came up to me and told me, oh man, that was, I don't know if I don't want to speak again. Forget it. You know, you might have that inside information and you know what the result is. So how would you verbalize that? What would you say? Yeah.
I'd say that John, the recipient, appeared disappointed or looked upset.
Yes.
Without specifically saying he was upset.
Uh-huh.
Because I can't speak for him.
Exactly. Okay, there you go. So you said this was not very good, and John seemed a bit disheartened afterwards. He appreciated the truth, but the delivery left him feeling dejected. He felt bad, right? Okay, so now we have the facts, and we have the result. Don't open it up for a dialogue after the negative result. Why? Because if you're like, what have you got to say for yourself? It's kind of like, it's like an attack. So you want to jump right away to the, you know, this is what we want. So you want to jump into the align. Okay, this is what happened, and this was the result. What we actually want is, so, and I'm saying this because a lot of times with the leaders I coach, they'll do the facts and the result, and then they'll question. They'll be like, so, you know, and then what are you going to do? If you feel like you're being criticized, what are you going to do? You're going to shut down, or you're going to rationalize, or you know, be on the defensive. Well, I did it because I'm blah blah blah, you know. So that's where you want to be careful that you're not opening up the dialogue just yet. You want to jump into the align. So this is what happened. This was the result. This is the objective. This is where we want to go. This is the trajectory. okay? And if somehow you can link it with what's in it for them, like what's the benefit, both overall and also for the person that you're giving the feedback to, then it's more probable that they might accept what you're saying and be like, okay, okay.
More receptive.
Right, because ultimately the feedback's supposed to be something useful to you. You know, this is something that is going to be helpful to you. So what could we say to Sam here? How could we, so we said, Sam, you know, during the meeting, you said this. The result was John felt a little disheartened. So how could you do this?
Something like, you know, here at Toastmasters, we always want to leave people feeling strong, positive, and encouraged.
Exactly. And then can you think of what's in it for Sam? Can you think of maybe giving him a little bonus there?
I want you to be viewed as someone who gives good evaluations.
Okay.
Something random, sorry.
Or we want John to feel comfortable taking your advice.
Right, okay. Or if you know that Sam has leadership aspirations, you could link it somehow.
Share something that he can improve on.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Marcus?
And also you could share your story. It was there before. You know, like, this is what helped me. So I'm just trying to share what helped me.
Okay.
You know.
So you can share maybe even a personal story. Did you want to?
I have another one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought of it.
No, that's good. It's good.
To really be a well-rounded Toastmaster, the evaluation portion, giving and receiving, is something that really makes us well-rounded Toastmasters. I know that.
Yes.
That's my double point.
And it could be the well-rounded, but again, it's also what's in it for him. Our goal, like you said, is to develop confidence and improvement. And if you ever compete in evaluations, this is going to help you. Because that's part of the rubric, right? You know, in the rubric, you have to, you know, it's about being positive, it's about this, that, and this will help you so that you can, because it did say he had been doing a few evaluations, so possibly he might want to compete, right? So that's what's in it for Sam. There you go. Okay. Now the truth is, yes, like what you said, John, sometimes if you know people, it's a little bit easier to know the what's in it for you, right? But if you can add that in the align piece of it, it makes it easier. And not only that, but it shows goodwill. It's not like I'm just here criticizing you. I'm thinking about what this could help you and how this could help you in your development. And it seems more generous. You see? Okay, so we're at the mapping stage. At this point, what we want to do is we want to offer a suggestion if the person doesn't know. There's different ways that you can map out things. You can either ask open-ended questions if you want to do a more coaching style approach. You know, how do you think you could do this? Or what is the best way that you think would help John develop his speech skills or whatever? Or you can make the suggestion yourself. And it's a little bit what we talk about when we talk about situational leadership, if anybody has heard. It's like you could be a little more directive and give the person the solution, or you could be a little bit more supporting or coaching and then let the person figure it out, depending on whatever approach you want to take, right? So what could we do at this point if you want to make a suggestion to Sam? How would you manage this one? Look. Get it together, Sam. Come on.
Maybe have, like, if you see, like, this is something that always worked for me whenever I struggle with something like, you know, I struggle with evaluations pretty badly. But maybe have, since you saw him give that negative feedback to John, maybe have like a mock session for him to where he can see how a proper feedback is given and they give him the opportunity. It's like the I do, we do, and then you do approach to teaching. I used to be a teacher. So like if he sees how a proper evaluation is done, then his next evaluation, observe how he does the evaluation and provide him feedback from that, and then allow him to go solo from there.
Okay, that's a great idea. Or you could even say, hey, would you like for me to record you so you can see later, or whatever. You can offer, various options, alternatives, and that even shows even more goodwill, Sunil, because at that point you're investing time and effort in the person's development. So it's like, oh, okay, so you're not just criticizing me, you're actually giving me something of value, okay? So I put down, maybe you could share what went well, then make suggestions, and end on a note about their potential so as to encourage them. That's like, this is what I would suggest. But you can do it, in many different ways. Great, so at this point we're like, okay, this is the trajectory, these are the alternatives. And then lastly, it's the engage. This is where you want to get the commitment from the other person of what they're going to do differently. Okay, so what would you say here? Anybody? Once you've maybe made a suggestion or two? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's real obvious to say, can you see, can you understand where I'm coming from, or does this make sense to you? How do you feel about it?
Okay.
Is this something that you agree with?
Yes, it's like confirming. It's like, are we on the same page? Yeah? Okay. And that's great. Okay. Here I put, would you be open to giving that a try on your next evaluation and getting that yes. Okay. So I have 2 practice cases which I want you to do with a partner. So I'm going to ask you to partner with someone. I have case 1, and you've got your cheat sheet there. So you can follow the model. So the first case is you're the VP of Education of your club. A member, Alex, has signed up for 3 speeches this term and canceled the night before each time. You want to give feedback that's clear, constructive, and encourages accountability without alienating Alex. So that's one case. And then you can take turns, and then the other person can do the other one. You're the club president. Your sergeant-at-arms, Jamie, has been consistently late to the meetings, arriving just a few minutes before the start or even after the meeting has begun. This has caused issues with room setup, greeting guests, and starting time. Jamie's enthusiastic during meetings, but doesn't seem to recognize the impact of their tardiness. So you have a little bit of context there that you can work with when you give the frame model. Okay, and you're laughing because it's like, does any of this sound familiar? Okay, and a lot of times we just don't say anything. We just we're like, oh, okay. Yes.
The second case is something that I can so relate to in our club, and it's difficult. Yeah, it's really uncomfortable, and I find myself like my friend over here as well. When I get the evaluations, I'm always blah blah blah. I don't even know what to say.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just being transparent.
Yeah. It's tough because on the one hand you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, but on the other hand it's like, okay, if speak now or forever hold your peace, right? So if you don't raise your hand and say, I appreciate this, but I need this too. So if you don't verbalize what you need to change, then how nobody can read your mind, and if there's something, and especially like your friends, your colleagues, whatever, a lot of times we'll just swallow it down and we might not say anything. And if you say it with respect or with love, depending on who it is, you can really get far, and it's a great opportunity to make that relationship a lot stronger. So it's just it's where you're coming from, starting where are you coming from, So that's basically what it is, and being generous to the other person. This is for you, It's not just because I want to change who you are. I want you to be able to do better, and etc. So that's the idea behind this framework. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Grab a partner. Grab a partner, and I'm going to give you some time for you to, if you are doing the first one, for example, give the other person feedback, and then that person tell them if you thought it was useful and if you followed the frame model, okay?
Finding out why I canceled.
Okay, now honestly,
Following the frame.
listen, I do understand it much better than I speak it, so that I will be multi in Spanish, but